bilateral relations between South Africa and Sweden continue to grow as the two nations cooperate on a number of areas. These include trade, investment, social justice and democracy at large. Joining us now is SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo with the Swedish Ambassador to South Africa, Håkan Juholt. Kaya, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Perhaps you can give us an update on what's transpiring on your end, perhaps as you get into that important conversation.
Well, undoubtedly, Liesel. I mean, Sweden is one of those countries, it goes back to the struggle against apartheid, where Sweden was one of those supportive countries in terms of making sure that there is democracy in Southern Africa, not just peculiar right here in South Africa, but to other neighboring countries as well. But also the present challenges that we are battling with, whether you look at unemployment, especially amongst the young people, and many other social issues. But Ambassador Håkan joins us now. So, Ambassador, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Kaya, thank you for being here at the residence, and thank you for having Swedish fika together with me today.
Fantastic, what an honor. So, once again, Ambassador, when you look at South Africa, Sweden, there's quite a lot in terms of the collaboration. You look at the issues of combating climate change, issues of innovation. How important are these ties?
They're very important, and they go very far back in time. Last year, it was 60 years since Oliver Tambo was keynote speaker at Labor Day in Sweden. So we have been very close to each other over decades, North and South, built upon common values, ideas and thoughts and mindset. And now we are collaborating on higher education, research, science, and there is a unique university network with more than 40 universities, Sweden and South Africa. They are doing a lot of good things together because we try together to be the first into the new, not last out of the old. That's the idea.
Fantastic, especially, Ambassador, because these are very precarious times. You look at Russia-Ukraine conflict, each and every country is feeling the pinch. I would imagine the same. I mean, we've just seen you guys as Sweden trying to join NATO, which is quite a very big step.
Yeah, it is. And when a democratic country close to us are invaded by an authoritarian regime, it's not a conflict between two countries. It was one superpower invading a democratic country. That's a difference in the mindset. So then it's important to us to work together with everyone who actually stand up for the principles of sovereignty, but also democracy and human rights. And in the Nordics, we are together on that. The Finns, the Swedes, the Norwegians, and the Danes, and the Icelanders, that there are values in our society that we want to defend. We don't want to be the next on the list of countries to be invaded by Russia.
And how has that process been? Obviously, I mean, all the 30 members of NATO, they must accede and ratify. So it's a very lengthy process.
It is, and that's a challenge when it comes to democracy. It takes time, and you need to convince each other, and you need to come to common ground. If there is an authoritarian regime and a leader, he or she can decide exactly what to do tomorrow. But this is a process among democracies, and that takes time. But Finland and Sweden, we will become members of NATO, and we will do whatever we can to strengthen democracy, the right to vote, the right to elect your leaders in free elections, together with other countries. But that's not a threat to Russia. We have never had any colonial interest in Africa. And of course, there is no interest at all for Sweden to look upon Russia as an enemy. It's a neighboring country, but we don't want to be invaded by that country as Ukraine have been.
Obviously, another very topical issue will be the energy in South Africa, with load shedding, the rolling blackout. I mean, what can we learn from countries like Sweden, for example?
I think so much good is happening here in South Africa. So much really good, so much skills, so much knowledge, so much research. And there is a roadmap, and we try to support that as much as we can. But it's also needed to find ways to collaborate on local levels in societies. If transition is looked upon as a threat, me, you, and so many others will say, no, we will not change anything. We know what we have, and we don't know what will come. So we say no to all changes. We need to transition our societies, but that must be done in a dialogue with all stakeholders, municipalities, labor movement, workers, business, everyone. And that democratic process takes some time, but that's the only way to do it. So when we talk about just and green transition, it's not just a question of technology. It's more a question of how can we strengthen democracy? How can we have the social dialogue? Because we need to be into this, everyone, not some of us so scared that we say we will do whatever we can to stop this from happening. And we had an old trade unionist that actually said that sentence that I have never been afraid of new technology. I'm just afraid of old technology. Because if we stay too long with the old technology, we will all become poor. And that mindset of the Swedish trade unions, I think, can be useful in dialogue with trade unions also here in this lovely country, South Africa.
And maybe just before I let you go, Ambassador, I would imagine other areas that you'll continue to solidify will be collaboration at the international level, United Nations, especially with these uncertainties that we face.
Yes, and of course we are supporting South Africa when it comes to needed reforms of United Nations. United Nations today is structured after the Second World War, and of course the African continent must be represented in the United Nations in another way than it is today, and we support those kind of reforms. We are together in that battle because the world we are a global neighborhood, and UN is not efficient enough to stop war, hinder war, values. I mean, if the country that is the presidency of the Security Council, during the presidency of the Security Council, take the decision to invade a neighboring country, says a lot of status of United Nations of today. So of course there is a need of reform, but that reform is needed because we must stand up for the principles of democracy and human rights.
All right, Ambassador Håkan, thank you so much indeed for your time. So Liesel, that's the Swedish ambassador here in South Africa, really just talking about those important principles really enshrined in terms of the UN Charter, but also reflecting on the importance of South Africa and Sweden relationship. But at this particular point in time, I think we're going to have a comfortable fika.
We will have, now it's time for some fika.
So as we hand it back to you, Liesel, we're going to have a fika in the Swedish style here.